Pay attention to the videos that I put out. You'll be able to tell which ones are filmed back to back based on the shirt. Hey kids, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Uncle Frank, and that you are having a great day. And in today's video, that's a nice good clap right there. I want to sit back, relax, and have another episode of Frankonomics with all of you as we discuss an interesting pair of financial terms: buyer's market and seller's market. Now, these are very easy terms, I think, to understand once they're laid out for you. So this is going to be a quick video, but you'll often hear, especially when it comes to things like real estate, especially terms like buyer's market and seller's market. And what are those terms specifically? Well, you see, when one side has a lot of leverage in terms of determining the price of an item, you would say that the market is in their favor and that it is therefore their market. So, when you take this concept and you apply it to things like TCGs, in a market where product is scarce, product is highly desirable, product is hard to get a hold of, sellers have an awful lot of leverage when it comes to determining the price point of those products, because they can try to list it at a fair market price, but there's a decent chance, especially if the product in question is hyped enough, that they can inch that price upwards and someone might be interested in buying it. This is especially prevalent with things like, I don't know, name a Pokemon set from the last like 4 months, 6 months. You know, certain hyped products. I think Rarity Collection 1 for Yu-Gi-Oh! Was pretty hyped for like the first week and a half. For a seller's market, you know, the more fervor there is, the more hype there is, the more demand there is for a given set of products, the sellers have an awful lot of leeway in kind of determining how that product is priced. Now, they aren't the only ones setting that price, obviously, but market forces are in their favor because they can just hold on to a product until it's at a price they think it's worth and then sell it at that new elevated price, which is a good form of leverage. You can just hold on to something that you think is going to be worth more in a very short amount of time. That's what makes it a seller's market. Almost a buyer's market there. The inverse now is also true. So when you want something to be a buyer's market, you want the exact opposite. Products are readily available. There's not a lot of hype or interest in it, and it's very easy to get a hold of. When this happens, there's a lot of downward pressure on that product's secondary market price, and you see sort of a race to the bottom as sellers try to sell it for as much as they can possibly get as it's losing value. So they inch the price lower, hoping that that will entice a buyer to pick up the product before it goes even further than that. When that happens, we call it a buyer's market, because the buyers of those products have a lot of leverage because they're the ones who get to go, oh, do I want to buy that now or do I wait a bit for it to get cheaper? You know, I want to wait for it to lose another 10, 20, 30%. I want to wait for those collector boosters for Magic to hit a new bottom. I want to hit even lower for Scarlet Violet base. People were buying those for $85, $90, crazy times. And that's really it. It really is that simple when you think about it. The different kinds of markets when it comes to buyers versus sellers is literally just a codified version of supply and demand and explaining who has a bit more leverage in terms of determining price. Now, it's important to know that regardless of which kind of market it falls towards, which market the scale tilts towards, there's never all the power on one individual or one group of individuals. There are always going to be a coalescence of factors determining what the price of an item will be today, yesterday, and tomorrow. And sure, you can call it a buyer's market or a seller's market, but it's not like, all the people who are selling, I don't know, it's a good, trick-or-trade booster boxes. It's not like everybody who has trick-or-trade booster boxes, booster packs. What's this thing called? It's called a booster bundle. If we were in a seller's market, if we were in a seller's market for booster bundles for some reason, because for some reason these suddenly became the most demanded things ever. If we were in a booster bundle seller's market, it's not like all the TCG sellers would get together and conspire to, I don't know, what are these at? $10, $15 a thing right now? It's not like we all get together and say suddenly, oh, we're only going to sell these for $50. We're just going to wait. No, that's not how it works. Various market forces come into play to affect the price of a given item, whether it goes up or down. It's really based on a number of factors. But at the end of the day, you can kind of determine I don't even want to say health, but the direction a market is going based on whether or not it's a buyer's or seller's market. And that can go a long way towards helping you shape your financial decisions. After all, if something is in a seller's market, something is very hyped, in demand, etc., you might be less interested in purchasing items from that market category if you're a bit more price conscious and you want to kind of stretch the power of your dollars. Meanwhile, if it's in a buyer's market, you might be sitting there with your $20 bill in hand going, all right, how can I get the most bang for this buck as everything is going down or trending downwards? Something I forgot to mention earlier is that a buyer versus seller market does not necessarily mean prices are going up or down. It just means that there's more leverage in that direction. In a seller's market, things are tending to go up, and in a buyer's market, things are tending to go down. But those are not always the same. I'm struggling to find a good example right now, but I think you guys understand what I mean. It just means that overall availability is determined one way or the other. So I really did intend for this to be a nice, quick video. I hope you guys understood that. I hope I did a pretty good job of explaining it to you. If I did, please go ahead and leave a like on the video. I do genuinely appreciate it. Also consider subscribing and share the video with a friend, and I will see you kids in the next one. Ciao. I feel like I really need to clarify that no, I don't actually think that these will be worth $50. That was just an example I was using.